billion on illegal drugs. Most of that for marijuana, cocaine, and heroin. Now, for years, Florida was the main pipeline for drugs coming into this country. But when the federal government began cracking down there, smugglers began looking elsewhere, to states like Louisiana. Tonight, a look at what some call the Louisiana Connection. Another dawn, another one of those patented, hazy, lazy Louisiana summer days. But keep in mind, when the sun comes up in Louisiana, it can get hot in a hurry. For the men aboard the Coast Guard cutters Point Spencer and Point Sal, life in the often mesmerizing waters of the Gulf of Mexico can change as quickly, as unexpectedly as the tropical-like weather. One minute you can be sprawled back watching a good football game on television. The next minute, all hell can break loose. General quarters, man your battle stations. Now, in case you haven't heard, there is a war going on out in the Gulf of Mexico. A real shooting war, a war against drug smugglers. And the Coast Guard has been cast in the lead role of dope busters. It's the classic good guy versus bad guy scene. But critics say the Coasties, as they call themselves, have been miscast in the role as the Elliot Ness of the Gulf. For too many years, the Coasties have had that wholesome, life-saving all-American boy image. You've heard the old Navy jokes, "Hey buddy, throw me a life jacket, I'm falling off a bar stool." Well, you can forgive drug smugglers for not laughing. You see, the Coast Guard has been busy throwing them lead from .50 caliber machine guns. It seems the boy has become a man.
We will hail a vessel. We will ask the master to stop. We will use the siren, the blue flashing light, which is common to law enforcement. We will try our fire hoses to drown the engines. We will do a number of things of that nature. And then, if we can't do it any other way, I will authorize, and I can do this, authorize the firing of rounds across the bow, well ahead of the vessel. And if that doesn't attract their attention and doesn't cause them to comply with our demands, then I will ask the commandant for permission to fire into the vessel. Then we will tell the master, and we'll go through the same routine again, tell the master we're going to start at the stern and start working our way forward until he stops. And normally, after we hit the stern with about 40 or 50 rounds of armor-piercing trace, we get his attention.
Coast Guard Cutter Point Spencer. Coast Guard Cutter Point Spencer. This is Coast Guard Helo 1486 on Echo.
Roger, Coast Guard Helo 1486 Point Spencer. Go ahead.
Yeah, Roger, Point Spencer. We have located a suspect vessel on the Epic list. He is 340 degrees, 20 miles from reference point Delta. Over.
Patrolling an area the size of the Gulf of Mexico is no easy task. Last year, President Reagan decided the Coast Guard needed some help, so he created the National Narcotics Border Interdiction System in hopes of capping the drug pipeline into this country. Nimbus, as it became known, opened regional offices around the country, including one in New Orleans. Each is top secret. Each is staffed by specially trained agents from the FBI, Drug Enforcement Administration, Customs, Border Patrol, the Coast Guard, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. Nimbus has one overriding goal when it comes to smugglers: get them before they get their drugs into the United States.
We're looking for any type of information that might come into the office that would depict a smuggling operation within the vicinity of our control. Most of the information relates to vessels that are not in a particular, they're out of focus. They're not what they're supposed to be. Like fishing vessels in the wrong area where we know that there's no fishing going on, or fishing vessels that are not rigged out as fishing vessels per se. They don't have the equipment to be fishing vessels, yet they're maybe registered as fishing vessels, and they may say that they're fishing vessels. And various other surface vessels within the Gulf of Mexico that just don't quite meet up to standards. They don't appear to, they're freighters, but you can tell by the looks of them, they're old, rusty freighters. They wouldn't be allowed to come in the United States, and yet they're entering or coming this way, and they just appear to be doing something that's not quite up to par.
It is absolutely a team effort, and our primary responsibility is to be able to put this team together to counteract smuggling.
How well is Nimbus working? Well, last year it's estimated that Americans spent approximately $100 billion on illegal drugs. The majority of that money changed hands in return for cocaine, heroin, and marijuana. Nimbus hasn't stopped that flow of drugs into this country, but it has slowed it down. So far this year, in the New Orleans region alone, more than 1 million tons of marijuana has been confiscated, along with enough cocaine to keep everyone in Louisiana high for a month. But the figures only tell part of the story.
It is very difficult to completely isolate the coastline of Louisiana and patrol it very effectively. There are not enough vessels, there are not enough airplanes, and any of the federal agencies or the state agencies or the local agencies that participate in NBIS to cover that area adequately. So we try to do the best job we can.
Obviously, though, the word has gotten out among drug smugglers that the United States government is getting tough.
Yes, it has, and one of the evidence that we use to verify this is that large motherships no longer appear off the coast of Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida like they did before. They now drop their loads off to pickup boats either just north of the Yucatan or south of the Yucatan Channel. So what we see coming in now is the pickup boats, not the motherships. We also noticed that the vessels themselves have gone to secret compartmentation, smaller loads, in order to try to get it past the boarding parties and get it into the country. This is hurting the drug smuggler. We haven't quite achieved the success rate we'd like to have, but we are making a dent in the business, and we are costing them a lot more money to operate.
Nimbus is under the direction of Vice President George Bush and is operational 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. The Vice President, who is routinely briefed on the agency's activities, says each center is responsible for collating information, identifying targets, recommending courses of action, and coordinating joint federal operations in the ongoing war against drugs. It's not an easy job. This intelligence photo shows large freighters in Colombia being loaded with marijuana. Colombia, Jamaica, and Mexico are the primary suppliers of marijuana, while Colombia is also the chief supplier of high-grade cocaine. Drugs smuggled into the United States by boat have one of 4 ways to get into the Gulf of Mexico. The Coast Guard has identified these routes as choke points. You might also call them war zones. The biggest battleground right now is the Yucatan Channel, shown here on the far left of your screen.
If you look at the focus of the drug traffic, where it starts, down on the coast of South America, Colombia, for example, if you look at that, there are only a very few ways that they can reach the United States. And obviously the closest point of land, minimizing discovery en route, would be Florida. But when we started to squeeze Florida, we started to prohibit them from coming in there by interdiction. They sought to go to path of least resistance. Now that's twofold. They could go out and go around and go up into the northern part of the country, but that gets a little hazardous to your health in the North Atlantic in the wintertime. And so they chose the Gulf of Mexico because while it wasn't as close as South Florida, it's closer than Boston, for example. And they also, once they get past the Yucatan choke point, then they can fan out to almost any area. And if you look at the coast of Louisiana and what's offshore and the terrain down there, once they get inside the rig line, they're pretty well home free. I'm very pleased with the scoreboard, if you will, in terms of the amount of narcotics that are kept off the streets, but I'd like to see us be more successful.
Well, the Coast Guard and everyone else connected with the National Narcotics Border Interdiction System will have their chance. The fall crop of Colombian marijuana is now being harvested, and soon rusted-out old freighters and small fishing boats will begin trying to smuggle it into the United States. The Coast Guard may be outmanned, but it's ready and waiting.